What is up, Beyonders? It is your co-host Joe,
And Bryce.
and today we are here on episode 2 of Sports and
Sports and
Beyond.
Beyond.
All right, Bryce. So here we're on episode 2, magnificent day. Why don't you go ahead and get us started on our very first topic?
Yeah, of course, Joe. Today our first topic is obviously going to be, is Keegan Murray fit for the Kings? You know, the Kings are a very big talking point for us personally. We're big Kings fans, but this is a question that most people think. Keegan Murray was a dominant shooter last season, but why isn't it transitioning into this season? Do you have any ideas of why it might not be transitioning, or if there's a cure for this shooting disease that he's kind of in?
Well, I think that Keegan Murray this year is just not benefiting from the new style of the Sacramento Kings. So last year he saw more success with the Kings. He averaged 15 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist, which are pretty solid numbers, especially for a sophomore year player. But going here into his third year, where he became the fourth scoring option, it's kind of hindered his chance to, kind of be who he is. As we know this year, a lot of Kings fans know, DeMar DeRozan joined the Kings. So you got De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan taking most of the scoring heavy load. And because of the addition of DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray has kind of fallen a bit in the Kings rotation. And I think part of this has gotten to his head and is part of the reason why he's shooting 27% from three, which is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like the biggest problem with the Kings right now is that Keegan Murray hasn't been shooting well, nor has Kevin Huerter. But I feel like before the transition into Doug Christie, Mike Brown was giving Keegan Murray these minutes that he wasn't performing on. And I feel like as a coach, you need to realize that, hey, your team, maybe even these players aren't playing well, so you need to make changes. And I feel like Keegan Murray has been playing a lot of minutes when he hasn't been shooting well. So I feel like Keegan Murray not fitting for the Kings isn't the problem. I feel like more of the question is Keegan Murray deserve minutes on the Kings? I feel like he fits the scheme of the Kings very well. I mean, he showed it last year in the beginning of the season. He was playing amazing defense. He was adapting to everything. Everything you want from this young person, he was able to do. So I feel like the biggest problem right now is that he's in a slump and he doesn't know how to get out of it. And the Kings aren't allowing him to kind of slow down and rebuild. They're kind of just forcing things out of him and he's not producing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. And you brought up an amazing point about he's playing so many minutes, but he's not really producing anything out of it. And I think part of the way they can fix this is by giving him less minutes to sort of motivate him. As we saw this year, for all my NFL fans out there, Bryce Young, quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, started off this year horribly. He got benched for 37-year-old Andy Dalton, pretty dang old. He's still experienced, but it's Andy Dalton. And then Bryce Young sat for 3 to 4 weeks, and Andy Dalton came in. And because of this, Bryce Young was feeling motivated on the bench to play better, and he ended off the season pretty well. And I think this should be a similar case for Keegan Murray. He is a young, good player, but he is struggling to break out of his shell right now with the addition of DeMar DeRozan. So I suggest. Go ahead.
And a lot of people think that Keegan Murray deserves the start, but honestly, in my opinion, and I think you agree here too, is since Keegan Murray is struggling, I feel like there's a lot of people on the bench that deserve a lot more minutes. Maybe instead of starting Keegan Murray as a small forward and having DeMar DeRozan as a shooting guard, maybe you should start Keon Ellis and put DeMar DeRozan as a small forward. We are both big supporters of Keon Ellis, and we've seen multiple times on the court that he is an amazing defensive presence. Not only defensive presence, he could shoot the ball, he could dunk the ball, he could get jams, he could do anything that you want from a young guard. You also have to remember, this is his second or third season in the league. He's also just as experienced as Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray arguably is way more experienced than Keon Ellis. But right now, Keon Ellis is showing everyone what he's made of. And I feel like that's a very important thing with the Kings. I feel like that's a very important thing in sports in general. When you're young, you need to show everyone what you're worth. Because if you don't, then you're going to have a problem. And right now, I feel like the Kings are having a problem with Keegan Murray because he isn't proving out to be what he should be.
Okay, yeah, and I just feel the need to correct you. But DeMar does not play shooting guard. He is the small forward, and Keegan plays power forward. Shooting guard is usually Malik Monk, but I think that Malik Monk is an amazing, amazing player, but he should be moved on to the bench because he brings that energy to the bench, and he gives our bench a lot of depth. And I for sure agree with you that Keegan should start because Keegan is amazing at defense. Keegan can shoot the ball. He's proven himself multiple times, yet he's not a week in, week out starter. So and the thing about Keegan Murray starting is like you said earlier, I don't think Keegan should be starting anymore. I think he should be moved to the bench for a bit, and we should start somebody like Trey Lyles, who has been playing amazingly, shooting extremely efficient from the three. He's a big dude that can go up and grab boards, which is what this Kings team needs, or Jay Crowder, who can also stretch the floor and play some decent defense.
Yeah, and sorry for my mistake about the whole positioning, but I do really agree with Malik Monk going to the bench. A lot of NBA fans noticed Malik Monk's energy, and they would arguably say when he was coming off the bench consistently, he was possibly sixth man of the year. This dude is great for the Kings, and he's great for any team that he would come off the bench. Towards the end of his contract that he just recently re-signed, he was offered multiple teams made an offer on him a starting position, and he decided to stay with the Kings because he knows he could influence the Kings in a positive direction. So I feel like right now the Kings are doing the right things, but I feel like they need to piece everything together. And right now Keegan Murray isn't really fitting for that. But the question is since Keegan Murray isn't fitting, do we bench him and hope that he develops, or do we send him out somewhere and get a trade piece in now that will develop us and allow us to grow as a franchise?
Well, that depends on who's available in the market. There have been some rumors about John Collins coming to the Kings, but we're going to talk about that later in the podcast. But I think that Keegan Murray, for now, we shouldn't give up on him so quick because this is only his third year. And I think he's more of a bench unit player because right now, if you look at the Kings starting lineup, you got De'Aaron Fox, amazing offensive player. Malik Monk, amazing offensive player. He's Monk, Herter, Ellis, but we'll count Monk there. DeRozan, amazing offensive player. Keegan Murray, offensive player. Domantas Sabonis, offensive player. Too much stacked offense on this starting lineup. And I think for the Kings to better themselves as a team, they need to find this balance between offense and defense. So as we mentioned earlier, we need to start Keon Ellis because he'll provide that defensive help. And at power forward, we can start Jay Crowder, Trey Lyles. We have options to increase our defense, which will decrease our starting lineup's offensive yield just a little bit, but will massively increase our bench's points yield a lot. And if you look at the Kings stats this season, they have been struggling with the bench. Like their bench has been massively struggling. And I think that moving Keegan to the bench and when we have Malik Monk and Keegan Murray both coming off the bench, they'll bring that offense and the energy needed for the Sacramento Kings to be successful.
Yeah, and you said it amazingly. I mean, I don't know how I could really add on top of that. But one thing that I can add, and that we have been talking about recently, is about Brock Purdy. And you mentioned earlier that the 49ers, or a rumor that maybe Kirk Cousins is coming to San Francisco. What do you think about that?
So, funny story about how this came into my head. So I was working with my dad one day, and we're just over there with our cows, whatever. My dad randomly says, "Hey, Joe, what about Kirk Cousins to the Niners next season?" At first, I was like, hell no. Like, he's a 36-year-old quarterback. He wants all this money. And we've seen this year that he has not been the greatest quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. But we started to consider the fact that Kirk Cousins is going to get released by the Atlanta Falcons very soon, and they plan on releasing him this offseason because of the upcoming Michael Penix, who's been playing pretty dang good, and they want to give him a shot to develop. So they're going to release Kirk Cousins. And after every team just watched that abysmal performance with the Falcons, no team's going to offer him a huge contract. So Kirk Cousins is going to sign with a team on a lower deal, like a lower money deal, because he wants to keep playing football. And something that I brought to my attention is back in 2018, when the San Francisco 49ers traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, the Niners that wasn't the original plan. Kyle Shanahan wanted to acquire Kirk Cousins in free agency that season before John Lynch jumped the gun and traded for Jimmy G. So if Jimmy G never came into the picture, Kirk Cousins probably would have been a Niner anyway because of Kyle Shanahan's familiarity with him on the Washington Redskins. So he has experience playing with Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins can be a great veteran quarterback, especially with Brock Purdy's recent injury thumb issues. If these issues continue to linger, Kirk Cousins can be a great bridge backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers and can possibly carry them over the edge. What do you think of this, Bryce?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not a huge football guy, but I do think that Kirk Cousins signed this big contract. I don't think the 49ers should be able to carry on. I don't think they have the salary cap, nor do I think that they want to pay Brock Purdy and they want to pay Kirk Cousins. Now, don't get this wrong. Kirk Cousins was an amazing quarterback when he was in the Western Conference playing with the Vikings. Now, this has been called into question because Sam Darnold has played just as well, if not better, on the Vikings. So is it that Kirk Cousins was really a good quarterback, or was it the system that is in Minnesota? So go ahead.
I don't think that Kirk Cousins is a system quarterback because, as we saw back in 2013 when he was on the Redskins and Robert Griffin Jr. suffered that devastating torn ACL injury and gruesome knee injury, Robert Griffin came back and he was not the same player that he was. You could see that he lost some of his athleticism and all that because he rushed his injury. And because of that, they realized that Robert Griffin wasn't producing well, so they benched him. And Kirk Cousins came in to a Washington Redskins offense and balled out. He spent the past next 4 years balling out for the Redskins till he got his huge payday from the Vikings. And recently he hasn't been as good, but that's also, you got to keep in mind, he's torn his ACL before, he's torn his Achilles, he's gone through all these injuries. And going back to what you said about Niners wanting to pay Kirk Cousins or not wanting to pay Kirk Cousins, the Niners, what I said earlier, Kirk Cousins is not going to want a huge contract. Kirk Cousins is going to want to take a contract so he can continue playing football because he believes he still has some football left in him. So I think that he will want to come for cheap, and Kyle Shanahan will pull his strings and get Kirk Cousins to come to San Francisco to be a bridge quarterback for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, if you're going to be in this league, you still want to play football. But the question is why go to the 49ers if you're not guaranteed play time? That's the biggest problem. And you talked about Robert Griffin Jr. hurting himself and not being as athletic as he was coming back. The same thing happened with Kirk Cousins. Last season, he got hurt with the Minnesota Vikings, and he played through it, I think. Am I wrong?
No, he was out for the whole season.
No, he was out for the whole season. Sorry. And then he went to Atlanta and he was recovering from this injury. So it already shows that Kirk Cousins doesn't have that flair that he did. So why would the 49ers go out and get a quarterback that is kind of not really out of his prime, but not as good as he once was, even though he recently was playing amazing? So that begs the question, what offseason trades are we going to see from the 49ers, and what offseason is everyone going to do? I mean, the league is kind of falling apart. There's a lot of contracts that are going to be expired, a lot of people that don't want to re-sign with their previous teams. There's a lot of moves that we're going to see, and I'm kind of excited to see it. Joe, what do you think about this whole thing?
Well, going back to Kirk Cousins, I think that Kirk Cousins, although he did have a bad season this year, he's still a good decent quarterback with some decent football left in him. And he, like you said earlier about him not wanting to come to the Niners because he know he won't play. I think that executives around the league believe that Kirk Cousins will not play. And if you're any other team in the league, you're not going to sign Kirk Cousins, a 37-year-old Kirk Cousins, to be your starter. People want to sign a solid backup, and they know that Kirk Cousins' veteran presence can be used to mentor Brock Purdy and other people of the Niners staff. Although he is not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, he still has some great insights. And if we look at his stats from this year, he had 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 16 picks. Not very good, only 2 more touchdowns. But if you look at the years before, he had a 30-10 touchdown pick ratio, 26-6, 35-13, 33-7, 29-14, 18-5. He's had some amazing seasons, and I think he can use his knowledge and wisdom of the game to benefit some of the Niners' younger players. And I think this would be overall a good move for San Francisco to have Kirk Cousins sit on the bench in case if Brock Purdy does get hurt, they have Kirk Cousins to rely on because I think he will sign for a cheap contract.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins has been an amazing quarterback, and I'm not taking any credit away from him. But the problem is if he doesn't sign with the 49ers, we know that he's not guaranteed time with the Falcons. Where would he go? Where do you think he would go, Joe?
So if he doesn't go to the Niners, where would he go?
Yeah.
Well, I think he could probably go back to the Commanders, back to his old team, and back up Jaden Daniels, just kind of as like a bridge quarterback, like I said, or any other team with a young quarterback that they want an older quarterback to be the mentor for. But as of right now, I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head that he'd be a good for besides the San Francisco 49ers because of his familiarity with Kyle Shanahan and his whole system.
Yeah, I don't really think that Kirk Cousins has anywhere else to go other than the 49ers if no one else really wants to sign him. I feel like the 49ers kind of need that backup quarterback. I mean, Josh Dobbs was good when he played for a lot of teams throughout the league, and he was an amazing player. But
Astronaut.
I think that, yeah, I mean, you got to give credit to him. He's
He's a
smart.
good player.
He has a lot of IQ on the field, but you want to pull in that veteran, and Kirk Cousins knows how to play. He knows how to get wins. He will be a very good mentor for Brock Purdy, even though I feel like Brock Purdy already knows a lot about the sport. But I feel like just that little push will definitely help him over the line and kind of prove to everyone what he got. This season was not good for Brock Purdy. This season was definitely a slump, and I feel like Brock Purdy has something to prove, and I feel like Kirk Cousins will help Brock Purdy show everybody what he has to prove.
Yeah, great points, great points. So overall, we think that, or I think at least, and Bryce seems to think that Kirk Cousins would be a great fit for the San Francisco 49ers as a backup quarterback and a bridge quarterback in case of Brock Purdy gets hurt. So ready to move on to the next topic.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. Next topic we have here. Hold on, let me get there. Is will the Cavs reach 70 wins? What do you think, Joe?
Okay. Well, right now, the Cavs have an astonishing 34-5 record, top of the Eastern Conference, and they have looked borderline unstoppable. I mean, you got Darius Garland who can pass the rock, shoot the rock, great offensive player. Donovan Mitchell. Do we even need to say anything about Donovan Mitchell? His game is crazy. He can shoot the three, he can shoot mid-ranges, he can dunk. This guy can play good defense. He can space the floor. He's a great, one of the league's greatest shooting guards. And at small forward, they got Karis LeVert. He's a decent little like bridge player. But then they got Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen at their power forward and center positions. And those guys are absolutely amazing at playing defense, grabbing rebounds, and they have been a huge part of the Cleveland Cavaliers' success. And I think part of the success is their coaching scheme and the players and the talent they have built up over all these years. What do you think, Bryce?
Yeah, everything on the Cavaliers is all just clicking together. It's not a team that everyone would expect them to be. I feel like when you look at it on paper, they're not a very dominant team. But when you look at them play on the court, there's so much passion and so much joy that you can't help but to think like this team has potential to go all the way. I mean, when you see them beat one of the best teams in the league in the Thunder, you have to be like, wow, they are like a competitive team. And not to mention that game against the Thunder was probably one of the best games we'll see all year. There was so much action. There was just everything that you want in a basketball game. It was in that game. So I feel like the question is, will the Cavaliers remain healthy and will they remain consistent? Because if they aren't going to remain consistent, then we have a big problem on our hands.
Yes. So I think the Cavs can and will remain consistent because even if their starters get hurt, they have some good bench players. They got the young up and coming Emini Bates. He hasn't really proved himself yet, but he's been grinding it over the summer, getting stronger, more athletic. He was the top viewed prospect until he fell in the draft. Whatever year he was drafted, I think it was 2022, 2023. But he was a highly viewed prospect, and I think part of that basketball player is still definitely in him. They also got Ty Jerome as the backup shooting guard. He's an amazing player. I mean, not amazing, but like he's a great bench player, somebody you would want on your supporting cast. And they also got Max Strus, who had that really insane 2023 run with the Heat. He's a great, solid backup player. Isaac Okoro, young shooting guard. Georges Niang, he can shoot the three. He's a pretty good floor spacer. And the veteran presence of Tristan Thompson. I think that even if this team does get injured, they have good coaching and they have good players to fall back on. So going back to the original question, will the Cavs reach 70 wins? Well, statistically right now, they are on pace for a 71-11 season. I think that if the Cavs keep up this consistent level of play, they will be really close to 70 wins. And if not, I think they'll have at least above 65 wins with how dominant this Cavs team looks right now. What do you think, Bryce?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like the Cavs are on pace for it, but at the end of the day, it's basketball. They play night in and night out, and you really want to hope that your bench depth can step up when it matters most. Now, the biggest question is are the Cavs capable of that? Personally, I don't think so. I think that they're going to have kind of like a dry spout, a little bit past All-Stars, about the All-Star weekend, just because they're getting back into the tune, they're getting back used to it. Not all the players are playing. I mean, I'm sure there's at least one or two All-Stars that are going to come from Cleveland. So, I mean, those players will stay fresh. They'll definitely get publicity, but I feel like at the end of the day, it comes down to everyone else around them. And I feel like everyone else around them might hold them down towards the end of the season. And that's okay because I still think that they're going to be a playoff team. They're definitely not going to be a play-in team. They are way too good to be a play-on team. But there's still a question is, will they be the number 1 seed? Will they be the number 2 seed? There's teams behind them that are just as good, if not better than them when it comes to the playoff season. So it just dictates, are the Cavs going to remain consistent going towards the end of the season, and will they remain consistent towards the end of the season? Joe,
Oh yeah,
what do
I
you
definitely.
take?
My bad.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
what are you taking from this Cavs team? Like, if they start to lose, are you going to press the panic button? What would you do as a coach? How would you deal with this loss if they start losing?
If they start losing, I would regroup and kind of go back to that scheme we originally had in the beginning of the season, because this Cavs team looks, like I've said it multiple times, this Cavs team looks dang near unstoppable. They're 34-5 right now. The closest team behind them is the 28-12 Celtics. They have taken a huge lead in the Eastern Conference. And I think that even if they do hit a slump, they'll find a way to get back into their rhythm because of how unstoppable they look. A team does not just go from being unstoppable to just completely losing their steps. It does happen, but this does not happen to good teams, especially when it's embedded with all-stars like Donovan Mitchell, who I know will rather lose a leg than lose a game, or Evan Mobley, or Darius Garland, and all those guys they have on that roster. I know that those are strong, very good players that will help the Cavaliers win. And I think they will finish as the first seed. But there is a lot of competition in this Eastern Conference, which takes us into this next topic. Who's standing in the Cavs' way? Like, who will the Cavs have as competition in the Eastern Conference?
Ooh, amazing question, Joe. And there's only one answer to this. And I feel like some people might disagree. And I know there's one person in particular who will agree. And I'm going to tell you this, it's the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are the best team in the league. You can't tell me different.
Ooh,
There's no way that
but I
any other
can't.
team, there's no way any other team is competing against the Boston Celtics. I'm sorry. The Thunder are on an amazing run, amazing run. But are they going to be a very good playoff team? It is still a young team, and it's still too soon to say that they are going to be a finals team. I think Boston Celtics are winning it all this season. I'm sorry to say that, Joe. I really am. What do you
Ooh,
think?
okay. Okay, so we got some good stuff to build off of here. So I feel like I should establish some context for people that don't really brush up on basketball. So the Cavs currently sit at a 34-5 record. Celtics are behind them with a 28-12 record. Then you got the Knicks, who are closely behind at a 27-15, and the rest of the teams like the Bucks, Magic, Pacers are struggling to stay above 500 right now. So I'd say if we had to narrow it down to three teams in the Eastern Conference, it'd be the top three teams: the Cavs, Celtics, and Knicks. So with the New York Knicks, I think they're a great team, but I don't think they'll brush past teams like we said, between like the Cavaliers and the Celtics. I mean, both teams have the Knicks have immense talent. I mean, they got Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart.
They
I
just
can't
recently
the
got
Call
Cat.
Bridges.
They got
What's that?
Cat. They
They
got
got
Karl
Cat. They got
Anthony
Carl
Towns,
Anthony
and
Towns.
they sent
They're
Julius Randle over to the Timberwolves.
Timberwolves.
So this Knicks team is still good. They have players that know how to perform, but is it a matter of staying consistent in the playoffs? And this is what scares me the most about the Cavs. They're still young, and you could be a really good team during the normal season, but once it gets to the postseason, that's when it really comes down. You have 7 games. And once you lose 4, you're done. So is it a matter of time that the Cavs start waking up and start playing in the postseason, or are they going to choke when it matters most?
Well, I don't think the Cavs will choke, but I'm going to go back to my background of the three teams that I think are contenders in the East. So we talked about the Knicks, and you bring up an amazing point of the Celtics. They are an amazing basketball team. Look at their starting five. They got J. Rue Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and off the bench they got Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett. Many great players. Joe Mazzulla, he's a great coach. The Knicks are not the Knicks. The Celtics are an extremely stacked basketball team. And I think that they will definitely give the Cavaliers a run for their money, because they have looked amazing this year too, but they've also kind of had games where they've looked shaky. And I think part of that is their injuries. Kristaps Porzingis did not start the season off playing. He was a little bit injured. Jaylen Brown's been day-to-day recently. So you bring up a great point when you say the Celtics are the best team in the league, although I do disagree with you just a little bit. That's a great point to make, because you got to factor in stuff like injuries and all this good stuff. Like I said, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps, they've been out for a bit, and those are two huge parts of the Celtics core. And we saw this last year when they won the finals. They dominated the Mavericks. They won in like 4 or 5 games, absolute domination. They looked great, and I think they are, if one of the same, if not a very similar team that they are last year. However, the Cleveland Cavaliers look like a very, very good team. And I will keep glazing the Cleveland Cavaliers because of my glorious king LeBon. I'm just kidding. He's not on the Cavs anymore. But anyway, the Cavs are a great, great, great team. And they got these players that can definitely match up with the Celtics. And I think the biggest factor, the one thing that will stop that will make the Cavs stop the Celtics is their big man defense. So if you look at the Boston Celtics roster, they got people that can play defense all right. You got Jrue Holiday, Derek White. Those are two, like I'd say they're both like top 10 defensive guards in the league. Very good defensive guards, and they're both on the Cavs Celtics starting lineup. Amazing, amazing defensive guards. So they can stop Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, granted. But you got to look at the rest of the team because Jason Tatum can also play great defense. But you got to look at the rest of the Cavs team because they have the two biggest factors are Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. They can both play amazing defense, especially Evan Mobley. Shout out Evan Mobley. He's an amazing defensive player. Jarrett Allen can also play a good amount of defense, and they can both grab boards. There is nobody super big in that Celtics starting lineup besides Kristaps Porzingis, who's like a 7-foot beast. Tingus Pingus. Shout out, bro. But I think the biggest factor that puts the Cavaliers over the Celtics is their fundamental basketball. They may not be one of the most flashy teams around, but they can grab boards and play amazing defense, which is why I think will carry the Cavaliers over the Celtics in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and that begs the question, are the Cavs a finals team? You think that the Cavs are going to beat the Celtics going into the finals. Now, who do you think on the Western Conference is going to join them in the finals if they get to the finals, if they beat the Celtics, which I don't think that the Cavs are even capable of competing with the Celtics. The Celtics are teams that have been to the finals multiple years now, and it's not like they lost a lot of players. They still have the same players that they did the finals run last season. Not to mention, you forgot the biggest factor, Derek White. Derek White is an amazing player who plays amazing. He does good defense. He could shoot the ball. He could drive the ball. He is everything you want in a guard, and he might not be recognized as an all-star guard, but I personally think that he could be an all-star guard. I think he's possibly one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference and possibly one of the best guards in the league. Arguably. Now, for Grant, I know it's a crazy take. It's a crazy take. I do have Derek White on my fantasy basketball team, so I always pray every single day that he plays good. So I'm gonna freaking hype him up, and I'm gonna talk like he's this big guy, but I know that he's not. But he has potential. He's older, but he still has potential to be this great player. And I think this playoff run is going to prove to everyone that Derek White is a star on a star caliber team. He might be slept on. People don't talk about Derek White, but he is a star. He's a star. So please don't write him out. You already wrote him out once. I'm not going to let you write him out again. You understand that, Joe?
Don't write off Derek White. I got you for sure. And I will give credit to Derek White because I don't think he's one of the best guards in the league. He is definitely a great, great guard. I'd say one of the better guards in the league, not one of the best. And shout out to Derek White, though. He got an 87 overall rating on 2K25. Absolute dog for that. I mean, I wasn't familiar with this game until I saw his 87 overall, and I was like, this guy's pretty damn good.
Hey, it should have been 90. Are you kidding me? They knocked out 3 points because he's old. Give him 90. Give him 90 overall. Come on.
They should give him 99 just for that bald, beautiful head.
Dude, hey, he might put up numbers against Mr. C. Mr. C has a bald head, but Derek White has a better bald head than anyone I've ever seen. So I think Derek White should be a 99 overall just for looks and aesthetics.
You bring up a great point. Mr. C versus Derek White. I would love to see a basketball 1v1. That's like Michael Jordan versus LeBron James right there. That would be an insane, insane game. And for those of you that don't go to our school, Mr. C is a teacher, our math teacher. He is our glorious king. He is 100% bald, and him and Derek White low-key look a little bit alike. So that's why Bryce brings that up right now.
Yeah, and to go totally off topic about Mr. C, I think if we put Mr. C and Derek White on the court, I think Mr. C's taking it. Mr. C has at least a 6-foot vertical, bro. This guy's jumping over anyone. He could put Wemby in a poster. He could put Bol in a poster. He could put Mo Bamba in a poster. You put Mr. C and anyone together, Mr. C's posterizing anyone. It's game over. You know what? People argue Michael Jordan and LeBron. It's Mr. C and LeBron. Michael Jordan is LeBron. Mr. C is the best player in the whole world. I said it. crazy sports take. We went off topic, but I feel like it's something that we need to talk about. Mr. C doesn't get enough credit for what he does. All the teachers don't get enough credit for what they do. And I feel like this is a perfect time to just give a shout out to literally everyone who does everything for us. We couldn't have done it alone. They're amazing people. And I feel like the next big topic that we've been talking about, we talked about the East. Now we need to transition over to the West. There's one team that is super duper hot in the West. Joe, are you familiar with the Thunder's game?
I am, in fact, familiar with the Thunder's game. The Thunder are 33-6 right now, which is pretty dang close to the Cavaliers' 34-5 record. They are both very, very good teams. They both got all-stars. Like the Thunder, they got SGA, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. They got a lot of good players that makes them a good team. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an amazing, amazing player. And I think part of his game is what's carrying the Thunder over the hump right now with their combined big men like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and all those guys that contribute to make this team great. So this begs the question, are the Thunder winning the finals? Well, I think that the Thunders have I think the Thunders will make it out of the West and go to the finals. It's just a matter of who they play. Well, let's look at the rest of West standings right now. Thunder 33-6. We talked about them. Houston Rockets, the 27-12 team. They've been an underrated team this year. They've showed the people why they are a good team. They got Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Alfred Şengün, and Dylan Brooks, and many more great players that make their team great. But when I compare them side by side with the OKC Thunder, I don't think that they're the better team. And when we look at the 26-15 Grizzlies, I don't think the Thunders are that good of a team either. John Morant, he's a great player, but he's struggling with being on the court. He's injured a lot and stuff like that. And then you got other players like on the Nuggets. You got Nikola Jokic. He's been great this season. However, his team hasn't really been the best. As we saw with the 2023 finals winning Nuggets team, they were an amazing team that were constantly locked in and working together. Well, this year, we've seen that players like Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., they haven't been stepping up as much as they used to be back in 2023 when that team was super in sync. And then we move down to the Clippers, who've got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on paper, and Norman Powell too. On paper, amazing roster. The problem is Kawhi Leonard plays like one game a season, and then he sprains his eyebrow and he's out for the rest of the season. If Kawhi Leonard were to consistently be on that court, the Clippers would be a good team. By the way, I just realized I said Paul George was on the Clippers. Ignore that. I was thinking about last year. They do not have Paul George. I apologize for that lack of ball knowledge. Yeah, but they have Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you said about Kawhi Leonard spraining his eyebrow. Paul George went to a team with another person who sprains their eyebrow. I feel like people don't realize that the 76ers also have this player who gets hurt every single game, maybe. I mean, plays one, sits out for 81, So yeah. So back to the Clippers that Paul George isn't playing on anymore. The Clippers aren't a bad team. I feel like they just need to get their mojo going. It's not that they're a bad team. It's just they're not a good team right now. And I feel like for a playoff caliber team, you need to be great. They're not great. There's a lot of other teams on the Western Conference that I think that could possibly compete. Maybe the Kings, if they keep playing good, if they get out of this rut. The Warriors, if they keep playing good. The Lakers, don't count out the Lakers. The Lakers are pretty good. There's a few teams in California alone that could possibly make a playoff run. It's just a matter of consistency, and I don't think the Clippers are one of those teams that can continue to play good or start to play good.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just got to say, I 100% firmly disagree with your take that the Warriors could win the finals. Listen, they got
no, not the finals. I mean, just making a playoff run, going into the playoffs. I think that the Clippers might fall off. I don't think that the Clippers are going to go all the way up into the playoffs to give Thunder a chance in the Western Conference. Right now, the Western Conference is dictated by the Nuggets and the Thunders. And here's why I don't think that the Thunders can possibly beat the Nuggets. The Thunder is very, very young. Very young. Right now, they're already facing injuries. I mean, Chet Holmgren's already out. It's just a matter of time that more role players will get hurt. Alex Caruso has been playing pretty well,
Oh, I
but
forgot about him. I forgot about
he
him.
has to stay healthy. He really has to stay healthy, and that's the most important thing in basketball alone is staying healthy. And it's a question of the Thunder are healthy, and if the Thunder aren't healthy, then I don't think that. Go ahead.
I got a proposition to raise you. You said the Warriors they're capable of making a finals run, but I feel the need to just elaborate on this. They have Steph Curry, second best point guard of all time. I said it. Magic Johnson is just a little bit better, but Curry still can prove that he's the best. But Curry's a clutch player. He is the type of player that single-handedly can move his team to a deep playoff run. And I think the Warriors are capable of that, but Steph Curry can only do so much for this team. Because if you look at the rest of the team, they got Andrew Wiggins, Buddy Hield, Draymond Green. Those are all solid players. I mean, except Buddy Hield's extremely inconsistent. Bryson, I know that as Kings fans.
Don't forget that they got Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder they
Right.
just got from the Nets. So Dennis
Great
Schroeder is
backup
also
guard.
a very good player. So
Great
you can't
backup
forget
guard.
about him. Yes.
Yes.
Very,
And but
very good.
I think the Warriors, although they could make a deep playoff run like they did in especially in 2022 when they shocked the world and rallied in the playoffs and won the finals. Besides that, I don't think the Warriors will be anything super special this year. I think their ceiling is they could possibly make the Western Conference Finals because as much as I want to hate the Warriors because the Kings fan in me says to, the Warriors have been a solid franchise for years. I mean, they got Steve Kerr and Steph Curry, and Draymond Green, all these good players that can carry them over the hump, but I just don't think it will happen. And secondly, you mentioned the Lakers. I think the Lakers could make a decent run, but yes, but no. It just depends on if LeBron and AD really heat up that chemistry in the playoffs. And I believe that a team that we have been really underrating, now that I look at the standings, is the Dallas Mavericks, who made the finals last year. They have a not very impressive 22-19 record right now. And I think part of that was because Luka Doncic has missed quite a few games. And Luka Doncic is the franchise player of the Mavericks. Although they do got players like Kyrie Irving and many more in their supporting cast, like shout out Daniel Gafford, underrated dog. But I think the Mavericks are a very underrated team, and the record only shows them being lackluster because of Luka Doncic's absence. So overall, to summarize everything Bryce and I said, we got the Thunder, the Rockets, the Nuggets, and possibly some sleeper teams to keep in mind are the Kings, Lakers, Mavericks, and the Warriors. Now, Bryce, earlier you said that you don't think that the Thunder would beat the Nuggets because of their lack of experience. Well, I kind of could see this, but at the same time, I think with how dominant the Thunder have been, I don't think any team in the West is stopping them right now. They look like a very dominant and great team, no matter the age. I mean, you got SJA who's balling out. You got amazing players on their team that can play defense, like Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso. Then you also got Chet Holmgren and many, many more players that can carry the Thunder over this hump. So to answer the overall topic of the question, are the Thunder winning the finals? I don't know if they will win the finals because you got the Celtics and the Cavs in the East. But I think that the Thunder will make it out of the West in the NBA.
Yeah, and I feel like a talking point that we just recently brought up that we kind of let slip under our fingers is the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic is really good. I hate to say it. I personally am not the biggest fan of Luka Doncic, but he could go in and change a game with the snap of a finger. You have to give credit to this player. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks have made a lot of changes, not a lot, but a few changes in the offseason to kind of build up a little bit more of a team. They got Klay Thompson now.
Oh,
another player who just broke history books and passed Ray Allen in 3 points made. So you can't sleep on the Dallas Mavericks, although Klay Thompson is coming off of a horrible playoff run that he made with the Warriors.
0 for 10 against the Kings, baby. Let's
go. 0 for 10 against the Sacramento Kings. So that begs the question, is Klay Thompson able to adapt to playoff basketball again? And we might not be able to get into that now, but I feel like that's an important topic that you need to talk about when you talk about the Mavericks, because that's one player who might change the game in a positive and or negative way. When you're shooting 0 for 10 in a win-or-go-home game, you really need to rethink your decisions on the basketball court. If you look back, maybe some of those shots, if he made, it would have made a way more competitive game. but Klay Thompson has something to prove and needs to prove me and you wrong about the whole Dallas Mavericks system and scheme and him fitting into playoff basketball.
That is true. So I think going off of that, we can move into our next topic. Great conversation
Yeah,
there. We'll
and
talk about Klay Thompson later in the
yeah,
future.
and you mentioned John Collins of Sacramento. Joe, I know you're really excited about this one. I want you to open it up to our fandom.
So today in class, I got this notification. The Jazz and Kings are in trade talks to send John Collins to Sacramento for a potential package that includes Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles going to Utah. Now, I think that this would be an absolutely amazing move for the Sacramento Kings. The Kings lack wing depth. And by acquiring a huge defensive wing that is shooting 43.8% from three, which is exactly what the Kings need, this would be an amazing move, averaging 17, 9, and 4. John Collins to the Kings will be absolutely amazing. And the Kings have one of the highest salary caps in the league. They can take on the salary cap of John Collins. Now, as I talked about, the trade package involved potentially Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles. Well, if we look at Kevin Huerter this year, Kevin Huerter has been dog awful for the Sacramento Kings. No diss to you, Kevin Huerter, but diss to you. Kevin Huerter has been horrible for the Sacramento Kings, shooting absolutely abysmal shots from three. There have been games where he shot horribly. He is not the same player that he was 2 years ago. Kevin Huerter needs to go. The Kings are paying him a 3-year 2-year, $16 million deal, $8 million a year for Kevin Huerter to come off the bench and suck this season.
Yeah.
And Trey Lyles.
So can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may.
A little to add to Kevin Huerter. It's not like we've seen him play awful all season. He had a really good game against the Warriors. I feel like personally, he shot pretty well. So he's kind of proved to the Kings and to the Kings Nation that he can play, but he's choosing not to, or he's not making the right decisions on the court. And that begs the question: is Keegan Huerter? I'm okay with giving away Keegan Huerter, or sorry, not Keegan Huerter, Kevin Huerter. I was thinking of Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter away in a package. But Trey Lyles begs the biggest question: do we want to let go of Trey Lyles? Joe, you are obviously a big fan of Trey Lyles, but do you really want to get rid of him for John Collins?
See, Trey Lyles is my glorious king. If Trey Lyles has 10,000 fans, I'm one of them. If Trey Lyles has 1,000 fans, I'm one of them. If Trey Lyles has 100 fans, I'm one of them. If Trey Lyles has 10 fans, I'm one of them. If Trey Lyles has 1 fan, I'm that fan. If Trey Lyles has 0 fans, I'm dead. Trey Lyles is the GOAT, okay? He's not the GOAT, but Trey Lyles is awesome. He's shooting like very high percentage from three. There was one game where he shot 4 for 4. He's been a great rebounder for the Kings, but sacrifices need to be made in order for the Kings to be a good team. We've seen it in sports everywhere. Sometimes you got to trade a player for the benefit of the team. A prime example of this was in Sacramento back in 2002. The Sacramento Kings had, or 2001, sorry. The Sacramento Kings had the flashy and beautiful, amazing game point guard in Jason Williams. They even called him White Chocolate because he was so smooth. Amazing player. We're going to talk about him in a future podcast because that guy was amazing and like super flashy. But the Kings traded him away to everyone's surprise in 2001 for Mike Bibby. Now, Mike Bibby is an amazing player and probably is a little better than Jason Williams. But at first, Kings fans were outraged from this move because Jason Williams has been so fresh and so clean, so smooth, such a great player for the Sacramento Kings. But Mike Bibby, the beautiful buff king of mine, is a great player, and he fit the Kings scheme more. And because of that, the Kings got a 61-21 record. And again, got screwed over in the Western Conference Finals, but we're going to have an episode just dedicated to that because we could get like 2 hours based off of that. We probably won't because judging by Bryce's reaction. But
to add to the whole Sacramento Kings getting robbed in the playoff, I feel like we don't even need a podcast dedicated to that because I feel like all you would have to do is read your how long is your research paper in English?
My research paper is like 9 pages long, and it's basically all about the Sacramento Kings and the Lakers game and how it was rigged. So goals.
Yeah.
And
so
anyway,
I feel like there's a lot to talk about and unravel in this trade. Obviously, we want the benefit of the doubt for the team, but Is John Collins that standout player that will change the Kings? And here's why I am questioning it. We already have dominant scorers, like you said, De'Aaron Fox, Keon Ellis, Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis. We have DeMar DeRozan. There's already a lot of scoring presence. So will adding John Collins elevate the team, or will it force us to kind of limit the way we spread the ball already?
No, no. So I'm going to go back to my original point of making sacrifices. We're okay with making the sacrifice of trading Trey Lyles because it's the benefit of the doubt. But like you said, I don't think John Collins will hinder the rotation of the Kings because, first of all, if you look at the Utah Jazz aren't the best team in this season, and John Collins is their main guy. And still, by being their main guy, he's averaging 18 points. And I think that he will fit like a glove in this Kings system because he's also averaging 8 rebounds per game, 1 steal per game, and 1 block per game. He will bring the needed defensive presence for the Sacramento Kings. He will be that player that holds down the fort on the defensive end in the starting lineup. He is a great defender that can complement Keon Ellis in the starting lineup. And if we look at the team let's look at the Kings hypothetically if this happens. Point guard, De'Aaron Fox. Shooting guard, Keon Ellis. Small forward, DeMar DeRozan. Power forward, John Collins. Center, Domantas Sabonis. Then on the bench, we got Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Devin Carter, Jay Crowder. Absolute dogs. Like, this team will be absolutely stacked. And like we said earlier in the podcast, Keegan Murray would benefit himself more by being off the bench. Well, this is the perfect move that can kick Keegan Murray out to the bench by giving a valid reason so that Keegan Murray can prove I'm better than John Collins. I think I'm capable of being a better player than John Collins and will overall motivate him to do even better. So I think that this John Collins move to Sacramento will provide the Kings with a great defensive player and will overall benefit the Kings. What do you think, Bryce?
Yeah, so actually, I don't really have a lot to add to what you just said. I feel like what you kind of said at like really just put the cherry on top. But I do have a question for you and about the trade news itself because I'm not really familiar with it, but I am familiar with the player. With sending Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter, are we giving them any picks or what else is with the trade details? Are we picking up his big contract? Are we signing him to a smaller contract? What's the move?
I think that they would definitely have to give up some picks, like maybe one or two first rounders, and they would have to pick up his. No, I think part of his contract would be restructured. But either way, he doesn't have that huge of a contract, and even if he does, the Kings can definitely take that contract because Kevin Huerter has already a decently big contract. So trading him away will free up some cap space, and the Kings already have a good amount of cap space, so they can take on this cap of John Collins. And I think that the Kings are a win now team because they do have some good young players, but you got Sabonis who's getting up there in age. You got DeMar who's 35 years old. Eventually, DeMar, in like 2 years when his contract's over, he's not going to be the same player that he is right now. So I think that by getting John Collins, that puts the Kings in win now mode. I mean, they're 7-2 under Doug Christie right now. Adding John Collins will provide this team with the defensive anchor that will help the Kings go further and potentially be a contender. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year.
Yeah, and I feel like that was kind of all that we needed to say about John Collins. What do you think?
I agree with you.
Okay.
I think we got our points across.
The next segment might be one of the most exciting segments of the podcast. I heard a lot of compliments on the last episode about this segment. So, Joe, we're going to start with we've been talking a lot about basketball. Why not stir the pot with both of our all NBA starting fives? But this twist is it's going to be a snake draft, meaning 1, 2, and then you get the second and third, and then and then it keeps going back and forth.
I think we should just do back and forth. We should just do back
and forth. Okay, yeah, we can do back and forth. So do you want to start us off or can I start us off?
I'm starting us off because I know who I want to pick. All-time NBA starting fives. When you think of NBA players, when you think of the two best NBA players of all time, you got Michael Jordan and my glorious king, LeBron, my sunshine. So therefore, with the first pick in the All-NBA starting five draft, I'm taking LeBron James, baby. Give me LeBron James. Play him at small forward. Let's go.
You're throwing him in the small forward, not the power forward?
Small forward.
Okay. Well, then I feel like I'm obligated to kind of take Michael Jordan. I think I might play him as a shooting guard, honestly. I feel like there's a lot of good forwards out there. So I'm going to put him in the shooting guard. And then do you want me to go or do you want to go?
we're doing linear, so I'll go. So you got LeBron, you got Michael Jordan. Every team needs a big man. So for my big man, I'm gonna take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, baby. Third best NBA player of all time. Give me Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay. Not expecting that pick. So you
What do you
got
mean
the
not
two.
expecting that pick? He's like one of the greatest centers, if not the greatest center of all time.
Okay, yeah, but you also have to realize that you just left me with the Diesel. Give me Shaquille O'Neal, boy. Give me Shaquille.
Hey, that's
Give me
fine.
Shaq.
Because Shaquille O'Neal's got conditioning issues. And you know what?
No,
You
this
not
is
taking
prime. This is
Shaquille
prime.
O'Neal.
This is prime. This is prime. This is
Okay,
prime. Get out of
okay,
here.
fair point. But you taking Shaquille O'Neal gives me the amazing opportunity of taking Tim Duncan, baby. Timothy Duncan himself. One of the most consistent offense players, two-way players. He can play amazing offense, amazing defense in any system. Give me
Okay.
Tim Duncan at the power forward spot.
Okay, at the power forward. So I have my shooting guard, Michael Jordan. I got my my center, Shaq. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go point guard or if I want to go power forward. I think this late in the draft, you gotta go Shaquille O'Neal's best teammate. Give me the Black Mamba. I want Kobe.
All right, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. But alternatively, I read you this. I got my point guard and shooting guard spot left to be open. So, naturally, you'd assume that I just take some regular old player. But with my pick, give me Magic Johnson, baby. 6'9" point guard, can play in any position, can play defense, pass the ball, shoot the ball, can do anything on that court. Give me Magic Johnson.
He's not getting past Michael Jordan. I'll tell you that. Don't you tell me that he's getting past Michael Jordan.
Point, but he can
Don't
still
tell me he's
guard
getting past Michael Jordan.
He can
But
guard Michael
guess
Jordan.
what? You might have Tim Duncan, but I got Kevin Garnett. Give me Kevin Garnett. Come on, he was dominant in the Timberwolves. He was dominant in the Timberwolves. I have my small forward left.
Garnett's an amazing defender.
Yeah,
but Garnett's offense is not. Garnett's offense is not lacking, and because of this.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to throw him in my small forward. I'm going to leave my power forward open. It's interchangeable. You go.
You're putting Kevin Garnett at small forward?
It's interchangeable because my next player he's going to swing the rock. So don't do this to me. Come on, pick.
I'm getting over the fact that you're putting Kevin Garnett at small forward, and it's really, really scaring me.
Well, no, he might play power forward depending on the size. I mean, I haven't looked at the size recently. My next pick that I have in mind, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the size, but I'm familiar with this game, and I'm going to tell you this: you better be scared. You better be scared if you leave him open. Come on, let me hear your next pick.
Well, to round out the team, at my shooting guard spot, I got Magic Johnson. He can play any position on the court. Put him at shooting guard. At small forward, I got my glorious, beautiful King LeBron. At power forward, I got Tim Duncan, and at center, I got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So that leaves my point guard spot wide open. And like I said earlier, the second best point guard of all time behind Magic Johnson, the best shooter in NBA history. Give me Steph Curry, baby. Boom.
You just left me with probably one of the most sleeper picks in this whole draft. You're gonna hate yourself because you know who I'm picking?
Who?
One of the best Boston Celtics players of all time. Give me Larry Bird. I want Larry Bird. Give me Larry Bird.
Hey, fair. Larry Bird's a great shooter, and Larry Bird's problem is defense. So, who knows?
We don't need to play defense. Right. We'll just outscore your team. Who needs defense when we could just score a lot more? Not to mention, we have arguably one of the best defenders of all time in Michael Jordan. And then, don't even get me started, Joe. Don't even get me started.
Okay, whatever.
So, with this draft, I feel like it kind of proved that, I have better ball knowledge.
Oh, totally, yeah. Because taking Kevin Garnett in an all-time top 10 draft proves you have ball knowledge. No, I definitely won. You got Steph Curry, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What more could you ask? Four top 5 players are in that list. Magic, LeBron, Tim Duncan, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are all top 5.
Wait, to round this off, let's kind of twist to it. Let's add a 6-man.
Ooh, you're giving me options here.
Okay, you could start us off with a 6-man, and then I'll round us off with the last pick of the draft, and then we can go on to the next segment, which I think is a pretty interesting segment myself. So let's hear it, Joe. Let's hear it.
All right. So my final pick. Now you may think, why is he picking this dude? I've hardly heard of this guy. Well, my 6th man is going to be Big O himself. Oscar Robertson, amazing passer, amazing shooter, the best Sacramento Kings player of all time, one of the greatest Milwaukee Bucks of all time, led the league in triple doubles before Russell Westbrook came along, the most complete player in NBA history. Defend, shoot, rebound, makes him the perfect 6-man. Give me Oscar Robertson.
Okay. I'm kind of on the fence with 2 players, but I feel like I want to go Hakeem Olajuwon. I feel like Hakeem Olajuwon is a player that we kind of slept on. So I feel like he's there. And then honorable mentions, I was thinking kind of like Charles Barkley maybe.
Okay, sort of.
I feel like coming off the bench, I want Hakeem Olajuwon. You talk about defense. Isn't he the inventor of the
No, that's Dikembe Mutombo, bro.
Dikembe Mutombo.
You said you know more ball than me, and you don't even know the Dikembe Mutombo.
Oh, damn. No, because
you cooked yourself with that one. You cooked yourself with that one.
Yeah, I did. Okay, but if I were to, damn, I'm not gonna let that go.
You're not gonna recover from this one.
No, I'm not. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Dikembe.
It's Dikembe, yes, because he was a good defensive player when Michael Jordan was playing, right?
Yes.
I feel like I'm more of a modern ball player, so not a ball player, but a ball viewer. So I feel like I did blunder on that. I'm going to take fault for that one. But I do think that my team, just overall, like my team might be a little bit smaller than yours, but I feel like when it comes to scoring, when it matters most, I feel like my team might just take it. Just because fourth quarter kicks in, it's game over. We got Kobe throwing oops to Shaquille O'Neal. He's the diesel. He's going against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That okay? I understand that, but who's stopping Shaq?
Tim Duncan.
No, because I could just make a rotation. I could put Hakeem Olajuwon in.
Okay, well, I think that my team wins because your team's got scorers. Like you got MJ, you got Shaq, you got Kobe, you got KG and Larry Bird. All great scorers. But listen, you got LeBron James who can take over in the fourth quarter. We've seen that with 2018 LeBron and LeBron against the Warriors. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, insane scorer, inventor of the skyhook, great defender. Magic Johnson can do anything on this court. He can play great defense. He's a 6'9" point guard. You put him against Michael Jordan or Kobe, guarantee, I don't know if he'll lock up Michael Jordan. He'll stop Michael Jordan a bit. He will lock Kobe up, in my honest and humble opinion. All right. And then I got Steph Curry, who can rain the threes on this team. You got screens getting set by Tim Duncan, one of the greatest screen setters of all time, and Curry shooting threes. Shoot, I think my team takes it.
Don't forget, I have Larry Bird, Joe. Don't forget I have Larry Bird. He can sweep.
Larry Bird's not as good as a shooter as Steph Curry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you not forget about the time that Larry Bird was bored, so he decided to play a game with just his left hand and dropped 40? Are you kidding me? And you're telling me he's not a dominant shooter?
I never said he wasn't a dominant shooter.
Imagine waking. No.
Curry is a lot more dominant.
No. Imagine waking up in the morning and being like, "Yeah, I'm bored. I'm gonna ball out with my left hand and drop 40." Your non-dominant hand and you're dropping 40 on a casual night. No other player is just gonna be like, "Yeah, you know what? Let me shoot with my left hand." And then score. I'm sorry. Well, Larry Bird, you're sleeping on Larry Bird. I don't know how you're doing it, but you're sleeping on Larry Bird.
Let me raise you this. See, I never said that Larry Bird wasn't a dominant shooter because he is. He is an amazing, amazing shooter, right? But I think Steph is the more dominant shooter, and both of those players don't bring offensive.
I agree. I agree that Steph Curry is a way better shooter than Larry Bird, but you can't count out Larry Bird.
I'm not counting out Larry Bird. He was the Steph Curry before Steph Curry, and then Ray Allen came along. Clay came along.
He was.
Reggie Miller came along.
Yeah, but
he was the OG best 3-point shooter. He was the 90s, like 80s and 90s Curry.
But this begs the question too, is because it was it wasn't just the Magic era, it was the Larry and Magic era. So we
That's
got
true.
that nice old school rivalry, where it kind of started
We're
it all for
recreating that.
NBA. Yeah. So I mean, Larry Bird could play on Magic, even though he is playing on the shooting guard. We have Kevin Garnett. He was super dominant. Obviously, he kind of fell off towards the end of his career, but
Yes.
he was dominant on the Timberwolves and he was arguably dominant on the Celtics. So you still have that kind of consistent player in Kevin Garnett. I think I did blunder picking him so early because I don't even think he was on your radar. But I do think that Tim Duncan might take over, but I don't think he's going to take over to the point where it's going to be out of reach for Kobe and MJ. MJ and Kobe are going to take over, and they're just going to feed the ball to Shaq. And whenever you need a bucket, just give it to Shaq, and he's going to break the basket.
I could say that about any player on my team.
Okay.
So I guess we can let the viewers decide who they think their team, whose team is better. But I think it's mine. Bryce thinks it's his. It all depends on what the fans think now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the last subject, which I actually lost here. There we go. What is an ideal superhero? Random topic, but this is the beyond part of the podcast. We spent an hour talking about sports. Let's give the fans kind of what they want. Let's give them a little bit more beyond sports. So, Joseph, kind of give me an idea of what your all-time favorite superheroes, and then let's kind of mold a superhero together, or do you want to mold two different superheroes, and we'll decide kind of what attributes we want in our superhero?
Well, I think when the question an ideal superhero is brought up, it's asking you who's your favorite or what attributes would you want? Well, I think that first of all, any superhero has got to have the build of Superman himself. Because look at how sexy that man is. He's got the swirl. I got to recreate that. He's got the swirl down his hair. He's a beautiful, beautiful man. Super strength. The only thing that can stop this man is kryptonite. So I think like the overall stature build is Superman and his superpowers, but his weakness is the only thing that limits him.
Yeah, so for Superman's build, I feel like it's important to recognize that Superman could do it all. He could run fast as Flash. He could shoot laser out of his eyes. He's superhuman. Like, Superman is just overall an ideal, like the dream superhero everyone wants to be. Superman is a hero for all, not just for one. And that's what I admire in superhero. But when it comes to being the best superhero, do you really want your superhero to be like defeated by a bald guy named Lex Luthor?
That's true. That's true.
Kryptonite is his weakness. And I feel like in a superhero, you want to look for a superhero that might not be weak because of an object, but weak because of struggles because he's too good, And let me bring you to the table. Don't sleep on someone like Batman. Batman is a classic. He's a classic. In fact, he's so classic that he doesn't even need superpowers, and he's still considered one of the best superheroes of all time.
That is true. Batman do got a lot of aura. I mean, he's just just the his overall presence of him just being there and like the things he says in like movies and stuff. And like any of the Batman movies are super bad, but like those are great, great movies. And yeah, I agree with you. Batman is one of the greatest traditional superheroes. And yeah, my ideal superhero would probably be Superman, like I said. But if I could have Superman with hear me out now, the personality of Black Panther, because Black Panther, he always does everything for Wakanda. He's always in service to Wakanda. They always yell Wakanda forever,
Wakanda forever,
He's super passionate about the people he saves. He's not super passionate about anything he does.
Yeah, not only is Superman a superhero for all, but Black Panther loves his culture. And I feel like that's something you want to admire from a superhero, someone who's not selfish and kind of standoffish, Batman, lonely. He doesn't really have family. He doesn't really love anyone. He just lives in the darkness. Superman has the powers. Hold on, let me finish and then we'll get to you. Sorry, Joe. Superman has the powers. He has everything that you want. He has the build. Black Panther has the passion to just be a superhero,
Yes.
Like Black Panther on screen, Black Panther was an amazing superhero, but off screen, Chadwick Boseman was an amazing person in general. So I feel like people need to understand that it's more than just a superhero, but it's also the person that shows the people who the superhero is. And I feel like he played the superhero amazing on screen, and I feel like he was just an amazing person off screen. Joe, you can finish what you were saying. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh yeah, no, you're all good. I actually want to change my pick from Superman to the Wolverine himself. Because if you think about Wolverine,
Ooh.
he's bad to the bone, dude. He's got the metal antherium claws and the super healing ability. He gets shot, heals right up. Logan is his real name, for those of you that don't know. He has
Yes.
some of the greatest solo superhero movies ever, especially the Logan movie in 2017, one of the greatest movies ever. And Wolverine in his prime can stop darn near anyone. He is super like bad to the bone, and like he just is so like such a good superhero. And if I had to choose, it would definitely be Wolverine. But Wolverine's a bit violent because he is a mutant and he was kind of born with like a rough past. So my perfect superhero would actually be Wolverine, but with Black Panther's personality.
Yeah. So obviously you ditched Superman for some reason. So not only do I think Superman is probably one of the better picks, I have Batman with his abilities and just raw sheer talent. I want this superhero isn't only going to be a superhero, he's going to be a comedic genius. And I already opened the doors.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with
You
this.
picked Wolverine. I got to pick Wolverine's best friend. Give me Deadpool. Deadpool is the funniest superhero you'll ever see. You can't, I mean, you could kill him, but come on. It's Deadpool. Who wants to kill the funniest man on earth? Not to mention, it's Ryan Reynolds.
Just like Wolverine's.
Who wants to hurt Ryan Reynolds? Ryan Reynolds is just such
exactly my
yeah,
glorious. I love Ryan Reynolds.
It's Ryan Reynolds. Who would want to hurt glorious King Ryan Reynolds? So
Nobody.
I have Superman, Batman, and Ryan Reynolds, aka Deadpool, aka one of the funniest superheroes of all time. Joe, what are you thinking about these superheroes, man? Like, do you feel like superheroes have a good representation on young kids, or do you think that superheroes are kind of something to like entertain people?
I think they're actually both because there are definitely some valuable lessons taught in these movies, like especially in the Spider-Man movie. The famous quote, "With great power comes great responsibilities." These movie creators have implemented very valuable lessons for all their kid audiences. Although some of those movies are definitely not for kids. If you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, by the way, probably one of, if not the greatest movie of all time. There's a lot of like bad stuff, but there's also like all these lessons and stuff implemented in it. Like I remember watching Iron Man 1 for the first time when I was a kid and I instantly fell in love. So the Marvel and DC universes know how to make their audiences fall in love with superheroes. And I definitely agree with both of those points that you brought up.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I didn't even get to like name all my like superheroes that I think are amazing. I love Thor.
There are
I
more.
love that. Yeah, there's a lot more, and this could be a potential different subject that we could talk to with a future guest, or maybe just a solo pod that we have today. But I feel like people need to understand that Thor is a good superhero. There's
Yes,
Iron
very,
Man. There's
very.
Spider-Man. There's Captain America.
Shout out Clint
There's so
Barton.
many.
Hawkeye.
Yeah, there's so many different superheroes that I feel like it's important to shine a light on the message behind superheroes. They play a big part in just superheroes and play a big part in storytelling and just being a role model for all. I feel like that's an amazing way, kind of just like shine the light on the true meaning behind superheroes. And is there anything else you would like to add before we kind of wrap this up? We're an hour and 8 minutes into the podcast, almost beat the first podcast already. So anything you want to say to wrap it up?
Not really. I just got to say, I've had a lot of fun making this podcast with you, Bryce, and I hope that we have many, many, many more episodes. And shout out to you, viewers. We had about like 90 of you watch the first episode. So I'm hoping that that number just keeps on growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. Amazing, tremendous support from everyone. It means a lot.
Yes.
Never could have imagined getting that many views on the first podcast. We barely promoted it at all. It was kind of just like first period, like, hey, let's roll it out because we had it in the vault. Definitely not the smartest thing to do, but I feel like we still got a tremendous amount of support. So it means a lot that everyone, not very good comments, everyone's been giving us good comments, and I appreciate that very much. I just want to make sure everyone leaves a like on the video, leaves a comment if they think that we should have somebody on or if we should talk about something. Repost the channel. And other than that, I feel like this podcast was amazing to film. We have a lot to talk about sports-wise. We have a lot of people that are interested in the podcast. So I feel like everyone should kind of tune in to this podcast, tune into the next podcast and the future from now on. Joe, do you want to add anything to that, or do you think we should call it a day?
I think we should call it a day right here.
Okay, perfect. Let's leave it off on a good note. Thank you, everybody, for watching, viewing. Make sure you guys subscribe, leave a like. Peace.